Let us all take a moment to close our eyes and find the peace and stillness that lies within. Place one hand over your chest and another hand over your belly. Now on the count of 3, let's all take a big collective inhale together and let out a soft, long sigh on the exhale. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now when you are ready, you may open your eyes. Well, my friends, in that moment, we all just shared the breath of life. And we all share that breath of life each and every single day, whether we are aware of it or not, because we are all actually one and the same. I am no different from anyone sitting here today, and you are no different than me. And with that, I invite you all to take off your masks and sit in the presence of unconditional love. You see, we all wear masks throughout the day, whether we're aware of it or not, and many of these masks, which can come in many different shapes and colors, I might add, help what neurologist Sigmund Freud described as our egoic self in driving behavior that is based upon fear. And many of these fears are actually all shared amongst us. One quick survey in a room full of 100 people, and you will find commonalities in the fears you share with others amongst the room. There may be some slight variation in the types of fears that you share with others, but there is not one fear that a person shares alone. So, for the rest of this discussion, to better understand where this fear comes from, let's try on this idea of there being 3 selves. Self number 1 is over here, and it's connected to our mind, our egoic self, and our mask. And it houses negative emotions like anxiety, depression, and fear. Now, think of there being a second self over here. And for the sake of this talk, let's call this our real or true self. It's connected to our heart and houses positive emotions like peace and love. Now, think of these 2 selves as merging together to create a third total self that lies beyond the veil. And when these 2 selves down here find a way to work together, it helps the total self towards expansion and evolution. And that is one of our human predicaments we are all in. To find balance in the duality between our egoic self and our true self, in order to come to a place of supreme oneness with all that exists and find the peace that always lies within. You see, the problem is not in the mask itself, because again, that is part of our dualistic nature as a human being. But the problem lies in the fact that many of us, due to societal programming and belief systems, have bought into this idea that that is all of the self there is. But that is simply not true. Let me start with an example. Pretend you have a fishing pole and you are going to cast it out into the world to collect emotions like anxiety, depression, fear. Someone take a fishing pole and let me know where you will find those out in the real world. The truth is, you won't. And that's because all emotions lie in the mind. You see, the world just is the way it is. But it is the human mind that projects stories onto a set of circumstances, creates labels out of them that then tell us how to react emotionally. That is why one person may say that an event is a tragedy, while another may welcome that very same occurrence as a necessity, only as a means to help their growth and evolution. But at the same time of seeing past our masks, it is important that we honor our emotions, because our emotions tell us if our true self is in resonance with our current life circumstances. If an emotion doesn't feel good, that is an indicator of needing to change the trajectory of your path and how you view something. Because peace is the highest expression of the true self. And when you are living in a state of resonance with that true self, life becomes effortless. If you are tired, cranky, guilt-ridden, that is an indicator that something needs to be changed in your mind. Because all emotions lie in the mind. As Dr. Wayne Dyer once said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. You see, pain in this human life is inevitable, but suffering is an absolute choice, as a teacher once told me. And many of us get bombarded by various fear-driven topics in the media and see it play out on a collective scale in our everyday lives, from our friends, family, colleagues, co-workers, and that drives us even further into fear-based thinking. And so the result of this is we have many humans just walking around, throwing their hands up in the air and saying, well, I guess this is just the way it is. But it doesn't have to be that way at all. Like goes to like. So if more people can just break this chain that most of humanity has been living on for many years, and then the next person and the next, that will create a rippling effect in the world and help many generations to come lead more positive lives. So we must ask the question, how do we get out of this fear-based thinking and move to a place of peace and love? Well, the answer lies in this. We must find unconditional love for not only ourselves, but for all of humanity in their actions. Because at the end of the day, we all share this life and planet together. And when we can accept our fears, the fears of others, and the mistakes we make along the way, we can see the humanness in it all. We can also see the beauty of life and all of its circumstances if we willingly choose to look through the lens of unconditional love and see it around every corner in the shape of life's lessons and teachings. The first step in this process is to start by ridding yourself and others of guilt for past mistakes. Guilt holds us as prisoners of the past, and the past has no room in this infinite now or the near future. Make peace with it, leave it be, and see mistakes as a cause for celebration, because you or others wouldn't be where you are without them. And with that, let me ask another question. Who here has never made a mistake? Crickets. That's because we all have. That is how we grow and evolve as human beings. Which leads me to my next point. Forgiveness is the ultimate healer of the heart. When we can learn to forgive ourselves and others of past mistakes, that is us finding the courage to lead with the heart and move to a place of oneness and an understanding of the human predicament that we are all in. And that is that no one is making it out of here with at least hurting ourselves or someone else at some point on this ride. And when we can see that many of the mistakes that we make are out of our own fears, like loss, separation, failure, whatever the unique case may be, we can find compassion for ourselves and our fellow human beings and see that our mistakes are not so bad after all, but that they are a complete necessity in this human life that we all share. And in that change of perspective, you can see what I mean by finding the unconditional love in it all. Because by definition, unconditional love means exactly that. Love with no conditions. Ultimate freedom to allow yourself and others to be exactly who they are at the unique and particular place in life that they are currently living in. And this is hard for many people to do because, as with fear, many of us have been taught that love must be conditional. I only love myself when I am this way, or I only love you when you are doing this. But that, my friends, is not love. That is control. But true love is ultimately freeing and complete radical acceptance for yourself and others exactly as they are. So the next time your ego or your mask tries to guilt you, shame you, fill you with anger, envy towards another over a mistake that you've made or someone else has made, I encourage you, throwing your fist up in the air and saying, right on. I've made a few of those mistakes along the way as well. I leave you free to be exactly who you are, and I accept you as you are, because you're doing what you came here to do, and that is to be human. Congrats on your humanity. And lastly, we can do this with just about anything. Take any so-called uncomfortable situation you may be going through, and maybe it's a divorce, a loss, whatever the case may be. Reframe it, find the lesson in it, feel all the pain and emotions that arise in you if necessary. Use your emotions as a navigation system, and then consciously choose to see it all towards expansion of the true self, the self that lies beyond the mask. For it is the mask that ultimately drives this fear-based behavior, but it is the true self that sees it all in its purity and glory towards growth. As Ram Dass once said, we are all just walking each other home. And I encourage you on your walks throughout life to start to see each other as one. For it is not only the breath of life that we share, but also the fears, lessons, and successes. And remember that on the other side of fear is always unconditional love. If you so willingly choose to see this kind of love in its highest expression, which is ultimately freedom in its finest form. Unconditional love frees, and it is always the answer. Thank you.